we've got our tester. Gonna do a little test here. Let's go see if it still works. Hey everyone, Josh here. So today we have our first cool day of the year. It's a nice crisp 6.5 degrees for the daytime high. So I figured I'd make a video on testing the batteries in these TDIs. That way, once it gets really cold out, it'll actually start and not end up with no crank, because that's never much fun in the cold. So we've got a few different batteries we're going to try testing, and we've also got a few different testers, so we're going to compare and see which ones kind of work the best or which ones are accurate. So let's go into the shop. Okay, so the dealer that I used to work at, we used to have this traditional carbon pile load tester. Works pretty simple. You got positive, ground, and you got an amp clamp, and then basically it's going to tell you the volts, and then you just turn this load dial up, which tightens in this carbon pile, and it's going to get your amps. So you basically, whatever your cold cranking amps are, you divide by half, and then you just keep the load on for about 15 seconds, and the volts need to stay above 9.6. Really nice and simple. At the dealer we were at, we had 18 guys. 6 of us were either full-time or part-time mobile with only one of these, so that was a bit of a pain. So they ended up getting a battery analyzer. So they used the Snap-on one, but that was a little bit out of my price range for this video. I already had this analyzer, but I wasn't quite sure how accurate this was compared to the traditional load tester. So I ended up, King Bolen sent me this one to test, basically make a video on how it works. So I was given this for free. It wasn't a paid promotion. So we're gonna kind of compare some budget analyzers with a budget carbon pile. This one's more like an electric heater, basically, with the element inside, and then actually the traditional carbon pile load tester. So we're gonna see how they all stack up to each other. We got a nice little pile of batteries down here. So these are anywhere from automotive that are 700 or so cold cranking amps, up to this big one, which is 1400 cold cranking amps. So most automotive, I don't think you'll see over 1,000. So all of these would work great in automotive. The issue is that big one, which I see a lot in tractors at 1400. This load tester only does 1,000. This one I'm pretty sure only does 1,000 or maybe 1,200. I'm not even sure if this one will go that high, whereas the King Bolen will go up to 2,000. So that was kind of a nice selling feature for me to try this out. So we're gonna not test all of them, but we're gonna pick a few here and then see how they all work together. Okay, so our carbon pile is acting up, so that's not getting used. So we're going to use the more of the budget friendly load tester, so that's still gonna put a fair decent load on it. And then these two we're going to use as well, and we're going to kind of compare them. So first up, we're going to do a 770 cca battery. So this one is going on 7 years old, so it's probably at the end of its life. So I'm going to imagine this one's probably a questionable battery. But first off, we'll try the performance tools. Okay, so we've got it clamped on there, 770. So it says good, just needs a recharge. So it tested at 505. Scribble this here. Which state of health is 65%. Again, we're hooked up. So this says 6, 12, and 24. So we're doing 12. I'm gonna put the CCA. So it goes down to 100 and up to 2,000. So we're gonna just go to 770. Hit OK. So it comes with 451, so it's a little bit lower. And that would make that's the voltage, which is getting drained down. That one's the internal resistance. State of charge, 0%. And state of health is 34%, so that's a little bit of a difference. So I'm not sure when your state of health, when it goes from normal to poor. Obviously, if you think 34% of a battery, that's a 770, that's a fairly poor battery in my books. But yeah, that's that. So I'll retest it, and then we'll put this traditional load tester on. Okay, so this tester is a little bit simpler. So you take your CCA, so we're gonna just use the 800 mark, and then basically you flip this on for 10 seconds and then see where it sits. So it puts a little bit of a load, so this is gonna get really hot in here. There's no fan or anything, so that might be a bit of a weak point if you're doing a lot of batteries. So I would say that's a somewhat weak battery. It's dropping down to 10.2 or so. So I don't know, we'll just say that it's weak. So I would say in my book that's probably a bad battery. It might be okay for like a spare or maybe a lawnmower, but I don't think I'd be putting that into a TDI. So we're gonna test a bigger one here now. Okay, so here now we've got a 925 cold cranking amp. So that's set there. So it's a good pass. State of health is 96%. That's kind of... This tester seems a little optimistic on all these tests so far. 896, and yeah, 96%. Okay, so the one part I don't like as much is it defaults to 500 every time. So if you're constantly testing these bigger batteries, you always have to scroll up. It's not the end of the world, but that PT Tools one saves it wherever the last one you used. So 810, so it says it's good. Still reading lower than the PT Tools one. 77%. State of charge 98%. Internal resistance. So that's saying it's a good battery. Okay, so it's showing its way up there. So we're just gonna kind of split the difference, I guess, between the 8 and the 1000. Say that's a good battery. So I've got a couple that are very questionable, so we'll see what these tools do with that. Okay, so this one's a 925, and I know it's bad. Battery charged, yes. So that's bad or replaced, so we'll do 925, and then that was a 106. State of health 11%. So this wouldn't even turn the car over in the summertime, so I'm sure it's got a bad cell or maybe a couple bad cells. And it's been on the charger all morning. So let's see what this one does. Okay, so 925, we hit okay. It does its thing. So CCA is 55%, or 55 cold cranking amps. Tested out poor. Internal resistance. State of charge is 0. And state of health is 0. So I'm going to agree with that one. That is definitely a 0% battery. And just for the fun of it, we'll put this load tester on it. Okay, so it's hooked up, it's reading okay, and we're gonna flick that on. That drops down into the bad pretty quick, so that's a pretty dead giveaway that this is a bad battery. Okay, so this big one, I'm gonna test it on the floor. I'm not lifting it up onto the bench. So, PT Tools, it's not gonna go high enough is the issue. Regular liquid SAE, we'll max it out. So 1200's as high as it goes. So 1379, so it's just off of great. And it gets 100%. So it's 12 volts. Crank her up to 1400. Hit OK. So 1235, so that's still reads lower, consistently lower than that one. State of charge 98%, state of health 78%, so yeah, Okay, then using this prime grip so it doesn't have a 1400 scale. Let's throw a load on it here for 10 seconds and see what it does. So yeah, so obviously it reads good. It would have probably, if that scale was somewhat accurate, it might have been in the weak area, but that's just kind of your guessing with this one. So that's a plus for this. It can actually read or actually test these batteries. Okay, so we're kind of looking at it here. So looking at these numbers, this Performance Tools, I don't think I'm going to trust it as far as I could throw it. The King Bolen seemed like it was fairly accurate, and same thing with that prime grip. It's pretty hard to beat, just a nice little load and then a little scale. So for what it is, it's pretty simple. I'm not sure how robust it'll be with no fan in there. I can't imagine getting hot like that and cooling down all the time is the easiest on it. But same thing with these test boxes. All the magic has to stay in, and like all electronics, you got to be pretty nice to them. So I want to do a few more tests on this King Bolen to make sure it's a half decent tester, because sometimes accidents happen. So stuff happens, it falls down, rolls around in your toolbox, you never know. I'm not the easiest on stuff, so. I had to think there for a second, but yeah, it's back. Yep, still reads good. So that was the 925, the first one, at 823. Reading pretty well similar. So off of workbench, that's not too far of a drop. So let's try something out. All right, so it's a cold, windy Thanksgiving day. So I'm sure the ER is well stocked of doctors to help me if I fall off my roof here. But we're probably, the eaves of the shop there, I think it's about 12 feet. So I don't know, 13, 14 feet. We've got our tester. I work on farm equipment, so the engine bay is, yeah, about 12 feet up in the air, and it has batteries you have to test. So it's going to do a little test here. Let's go see if it still works. Okay, so a little mark here, probably when I hit one of those patio stones. Same thing, a few marks down here. Not too bad. Let's see. It still lights up and still tests. Seems happy. All the buttons still work. 823. So I'd still say it's testing the same after a half decent drop. So I'm going to take this apart. I'm kind of curious what the inside kind of looks like. Okay, I've actually got one more test I want to try on this thing before I take it apart. Okay, so being a mobile technician, you have to work outside sometimes, and I also do a bit of snow removal equipment repair, so I work outside a little bit. Sometimes tools get left outside, so I don't have any snow here, but that's some water. I think I made some in there. Now let's take it apart and see what it looks like inside. Okay, so we got it apart here. Obviously, some water made it in here, so don't test your batteries underwater. But looks pretty simple. The LCD screen got a little bit in there, but I'll try drying it out and then we'll test it here again. But as far as everything else, like inside here, solder joints all look decent to me. I'm not much of a computer board specialist, so I'm not sure what all's going on here, but everything looks half decent. So I'm going to blow this off with a heat gun, kind of dry it up. It's definitely not meant to be waterproof because, well, that's your pad, and there's no seal on around the outside edge. So it's not real often you're testing batteries underwater, but I imagine just raining on it a little bit probably would be fine. Like the LCD screen, it's got a protector on top, so looks like it's half decently made. So I'll dry this up, put it together, and then we'll test this battery one last time. Okay, so I washed it out with a little bit of electronic contact cleaner. The LCD board didn't seem like it's a huge fan of it, but obviously they're not meant for water. So we're gonna do our first test here and see if it lights up or if it just lets all the smoke out. 826. Which they seem to be pretty well spot on. So it originally tested 810 before all that. So you can see the screen's not quite happy, but I'll maybe bring it inside and let it dry out while I'm editing the video, and we'll see if it kind of fixes itself. One other thing I thought I'd just show, sometimes symbols are hard to understand and you might hook the positive to the negative and the negative to the positive. Do that a few times and then you catch on. Still works as normal. So just thought I'd show that as well. Okay, so that's going to be the end of the video. So sadly I wanted to be able to test those two electronic testers against that simple load tester versus that carbon pile, but obviously that one didn't work very well, but I believe that one's fairly accurate. But it kind of depends on the quality of the electronic analyzers, because this one seemed pretty optimistic on all of the batteries, whereas I feel like this one was more accurate compared to just this traditional. These three are all fairly close in price, so you can kind of make your decision from there. I like this mainly for how small it is, and I don't think I'd want to be throwing that off my roof, so I'm fairly happy with this King Bolen one. And yeah, I guess that's the end of this video. So get your batteries checked before winter, because it's not much fun when they don't start.